Hey, Adrian.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez said that he was en route to his location um, and would be on shortly.
Great. Thank you.
He will only be able to stay on till about 7. He's trying to push that a little bit farther, but we may need to hand off chairing of the meeting to another member at that point.
Great. Member Landry and Member Lutz are here in person, and Souza, Carr, and Swaminathan are here remotely.
Right. How many do we need for quorum?
7.
All right, we are at 5. So really we need one more member and the vice chair.
I know that Member Lakshman is on his way to. And we have a quorum.
The quorum. That is fantastic. You are able to call the meeting to order and appoint a substitute chair until such time that a chair can be present.
Okay.
We would probably want to ask if someone is willing to act as an interim chair with all the support in the world until such time as Vice Chair Hernandez is able to reach his destination.
Would either chair? Chair Elder here. You want to do it? Okay. Okay, I'll do it.
Is that member Led saying that he would be willing to do that?
That's me. Yep.
Thank you.
Just the start of the meeting.
You can still call on me for the chair report, and I just don't count towards quorum or voting.
Not at the location. Oh, she's not. Yeah, okay. Well, welcome. All the meeting to order, the Alva Community Energy meeting, Community Advisory Committee meeting for Monday, November 13th, 2003. And I guess we need a roll call. Yes. Member Landry.
Present.
Member Hugh. Member Liu.
Present.
Thank you. Member Swaminathan.
Here.
Member Lakshman.
Yeah, I'm here.
Member Pacheco. Member Souza.
Here.
Member Carr.
Present.
Member Carr.
Present. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Though you're faint.
Okay.
Member Lutz.
That's me. I'm here.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Present.
And Chair Eldridge is not at the listed location, but we have a quorum.
Excellent. At this point, I would recommend that we turn it over to Vice Chair Hernandez to run the meeting until such time as he has to step away, and then we hand it back to Member Lutz to continue serving in the capacity.
Thank you, Chair Eldridge, and thank you all for coming this evening to the AVA Community Energy meeting for the TAC of November 13th. just for setting up. Here I am in this destined location where I'm supposed to be at this evening. I'm assuming everybody else is. With that, Adrian, what's our first agenda item?
Can members confirm that they are at the locations that are listed on the agenda?
Yes, I am.
Member Lou?
This is Mickey. I am.
Then Vijay, I am at the location.
Great, thank
Perfect.
you. Member Swaminathan, yes, and Member Lou.
Okay, great. So at this
Great.
moment, we'll take a public comment if you've done the roll.
Okay, we have 2 members of the public with hands raised. Tom Kelly, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, and good evening. Earlier this week, maybe all of you saw it, Dan Lieberman sent out a press release in which it was indicated that NREL had given EBCE or AVA some acknowledgement for its renewable energy content. And in the press release, it said that AVA would be 100% renewable by 2030, which is actually incorrect. And so I wrote to Dan to point out that currently AVA is proposing to be 100% carbon-free by 2030. Dan wrote back to say that he changed the press release on the website rather than sending out a correction to everybody on the listserv. And I thought that was, I mean, who's going to read the press release on the website, right? So we're in a way facilitating this incorrect information to anyone who might have read it. That got me to thinking about all the other kind of erroneous activity that's gone on at AVA. And I hope that as a community advisory committee that you'd actually follow up on this list of things I'm going to give you. The staff proposed to make a gift of $15 million to Children's Hospital, and they did it all sort of in the back room without any public participation. And then thanks to the public's intervention, they decided to revoke that proposal and then offer $15 million for the Healthy Communities Program to install induction ranges in low-income households. Well, we haven't heard much about that. It's been a year, and I would encourage the CAC to push on that. The AVA purchased a building for $8 million and then found out it was going to cost $14 million to fix it, to make it habitable. We haven't heard anything about that. AVA has failed to meet its RA obligations in the past, which cost us the enrollment of Stockton in terms of the delivery of electricity. And it looks like from the budget that the local development funds have not been spent. And of course, my big issue, AVA has failed to meet its GHG reduction obligations under the Joint Powers Agreement. So all these things are, I think, things that the CAC has to push on, and I hope you'll do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Next.
Audrey Ichinose, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Audrey Ichinose, East Bay Clean Power Alliance and the California Alliance for Community Energy. My comments are related to last week's Finance, Administrative, and Procurement Subcommittee meeting, which I attended by Zoom. First, I want to thank all those who worked on the CCA Workforce and EJ Standards Alliance resolution. That was agenda item number 4, which proposed in part higher and more explicit standards for AVA to apply when awarding energy contracts. The document obviously entailed much time-consuming and arduous work. So thank you very much to all those who helped to bring that about. And a sincere thank you as well to staff for its cooperative response. The final standards policy will no doubt benefit from the hard work and the constructive, attitudes of all parties concerned. So thank you very much. Secondly, I wish to repeat the request that I made at the meeting in the hope that the CAC will take up the pursuit of the information I think might enhance AVA's role in promoting local economic development. I asked at the meeting that when possible, staff provide more information about AVA's rates for commercial and industrial customers. I would like to know whether our agency can or does already apply special discounts to new small businesses to encourage local development in the clean energy space, especially when those emergent small businesses are located in areas already identified on county maps of disadvantaged communities, the so-called DACs. This question is actually related to the CCA Workforce and EJ Standards Alliance resolution, in that it too refers back to EBCE's original commitment to local economic development and employment opportunities in our disadvantaged communities. I hope that the CAC will take up an inquiry into how CNI rates are set and whether we can use this lever too to foster more green businesses in our underserved communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments.
There are no further hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. At this motion, at the moment, we have a item, is it C3, approval of minutes from October 16, 2023. Looking through the minutes, I can take a motion to approve them as is. You ready,
would like-
Lance, to go,
I
please?
would like to propose adoption of the minutes.
Thank you, Member Sarmiento.
I'll second it. This is Member Landry.
Member Landry seconds.
I do see a typo.
And what is that typo?
Sorry. I just happened to be looking at the typo. And Adrian's notes are outstanding, but it says Member Landy.
My apologies. I'll correct that.
No, you don't have to apologize, Rich.
Thank you. Any other corrections or notices on the minutes? Quick question for Adrian. There was no vote taken on the September 18, 2023 minutes. Is that correct?
They were not approved. They need to come back. I apologize. They were not put on this agenda. They will be put on the next agenda.
All right, so you'll add them back for the agenda
Yes.
in December. All right. Do we need to do a roll call vote to pass
thank you.
these?
Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Liu,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Pacheco, Member Souza,
Yes.
Member Carr,
Yes.
Member Lutz. Yeah. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes,
The minutes are approved.
thank you. And we'll turn over to the chair report. There's about 5 items. I'd like to allow our chair to speak to those items if she can. And I'll jump in where need be. Is that fine, Adrian?
Yes. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Hernandez. I was prepared this evening to speak on a couple of the items, but was hoping that you could give a recap from last meeting as you were at that meeting in person. I wanted specifically to talk about the items D and E. So if you were able to give the update from the last meeting. If you want me to cover these things first, I can, but if you're able to go over last meeting's items, if not, I can run through that I was specifically going to talk about D and E. Are you prepared to talk about the items that are on the board's agenda, but not on our agenda this evening?
I mean, I can speak to the items on the board agenda. I
Great.
think there's 3 items there. But what happened at the last meeting, I think I provided the direction and information as found in the minutes of the board of directors. Our concerns around that were raised around the grants, specifically being able to have smaller grants as well, getting some technical assistance, and some of our concerns about projects being approved outside of the service area specifically, and commented those items. My notes are there in the board of directors minutes that are on the agenda that are now posted on the AVA website. In regards to the items for today's consulting service agreement, that itself is a professional engineering consulting services that's supposed to facilitate electrification, infrastructure development with respect to the direct current fast charging stations, something not to exceed $250,000 through December 31st, 2026. Here, AVA's worked through a competitive solicitation to select NV5 for these services and really trying to move the needle forward and deploying a public network of DCFC hubs. Right now with a minimum of 10 dual parts, but they're hoping to have about 40 to 50 hubs there to support light duty passenger EVs, as well as medium and heavy duty government movement goods. So they were submitted about 6 proposals. They submitted requested proposals. They got 6 responses, and they're choosing to move forward with this organization. It's more of a consent item. Let's see, consent item for this Wednesday's meeting. Second item that they're bringing forth is the audited financials for the fiscal year 2022 and 2023. There I reviewed the audit report, and there was no concerns per se, as they call it. The language is that it presents fairly in all material respects to AVA's position as of June 30th, 2023. I did get a clarifying question I asked about one item in the staff report about $6.2 million from power purchase agreement reparations. And there was a default by one of the energy providers there on that information. So we were able to receive $6.2 million from that default. That added more revenue to the organization. And I talked about other revenue received related to the audit. In that report, we be found also on the website. And the final thing I was going to cover, I think, is the campaign Levine Act. And that's something that deals with specifically elected officials, not appointed officials. It was moved to be effective January 2023. And the Council for East Bay Community Energy, or now known as AVA, is going to be covering the broadening of Government Code Section 84308, something that talked about limited opportunity to vote on certain matters when anything was contributed of $250 or more to campaigns. But since the majority of us are now elected, appointed, and this only applies to local elected officers, there's a fundraising ban for post-proceeding contributions over $250 extended to 12 months after the final decision. So if we were going to move forward the purchase power agreement, and we were elected, we couldn't really receive monies from the organization for our future campaign until 12 months passed. It's more of a notice to make sure there's a stopgap measure or anything there about closing a loophole, as was mentioned in this report. And this presentation is also on the AVA community website. I think those 3 items that I would cover. Do you want to chair it?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I wanted to check in with folks around the brand update. We've had a series of emails go out. The name has been changed. I can see, I'm hoping that folks can keep their eyes open for where some of that branding hasn't been changed. For example, the image that's up for the public right now says EBCE Board of Directors with the old logo on it instead of AVA Board of Directors with the new logo on it. Vice Chair Hernandez caught something and pointed it out to staff, so that update could be made. I have received a few communications with folks fairly upset that the press release says the shortened form of Ava Community Energy is AVA, even though it was a very explicit directive that community energy not be removed. So Ava CE might like having it written that way. The website's domain is now Ava Energy instead of Ava Community Energy. And I'm just wondering if folks have heard other things, because I've gotten quite an earful. And to ask that folks keep their eyes out for like rolling out a whole identity change is a really big deal, and there's going to be a whole lot of little details that staff will, I'm sure, appreciate the heads up on catching so that they can be caught quicker. So I'm just wondering what people have thought, if you've received those emails, what you thought about them.
I got a package of swag.
Mhm.
Wearing an Ava cap, but it doesn't say Ava Community Energy, and there's plenty of room on the cap for community energy. The mug says it Ava, but not Ava Community Energy. The trivets had the logo on, that's fine. I mean, trivet's a trivet. So yes, the community energy part is getting dropped.
I think we may need a close-up on member Lutz's cap there.
Do other people, like, did you get the emails? What did you think? Oh. Mm.
Oh. Some no community energy there. Thank you.
Okay. Has anybody else, did you like the email? Have you been to the new website? Was it easy to navigate? Have you heard from any of your constituents on anything?
I've heard grumbling about the name still, but that's just grumbling.
Okay,
But it doesn't mean anything.
sure. Other folks? Member
sorry.
Hernandez?
I just had explained it to like what Ava stands for, like Alameda and Valley. Might as well have been Alva. And now I start thinking about it. Alameda and Valley, I guess that's where they came through Ava, but that was just what I understood. Combining both territories as one new name, even though the name itself is a nice name, but the background behind it, that's Alameda and Valley, Ava. But it could have been Alva.
Vice Chair Hernandez, I would love it if you would call on folks.
Thank you. I'll take that over. Yeah. Member Carr? Are they frozen? Member Souza, I think you want to speak.
Thank you for calling on me. Oh, Member Carr, or did you?
Yeah,
I
my
it's
mic was
frozen.
up. Sorry, just few minutes. So I like the new site, but I think whenever a new product is launched, there are always two sides. So I guess it's a matter of getting used to it. Did you guys hear what I just said?
Yes, that's a matter of getting used to it.
You
Used to it.
dropped
So,
off at the end.
yeah, my internet connection is little not very strong. So I feel, I guess, with time, people will get used to the new face of it. Like, so, just
Thank you,
want
Member
to
Carr.
Well, my
Member
husband
Souza?
is already calling it Ava. Community Energy. I kind of like the logo. I like the little shape on it. It's reminiscent of maybe a leaf. I don't think I've been through a few rebrandings. and everything from my old company STK. It was used to be SDC, and it was really hard. It's really hard to remember all of that stuff, but I think it'll be a pretty good transition. I like the name. The community energy part shouldn't be forgotten. Just that's important. So that's my thoughts. Oh, I got my new shirt. I'm just kidding. I didn't get a shirt. I was just trying to make you guys jealous. But I got my package with the cup and the hat. So yeah, it was all good. Thank you. Thank you very much for the accoutrements.
Yes, thank you. I feel like it was the new onboarding employee kit that I was receiving. All I needed was a paycheck. Anybody else with comments?
Well, I have explained to a few of my friends at parties, and this merchandise would help spread the word. So thank you.
Member Lashman?
Yeah, no quick comment on the website, but the Zoom email that I received came from EBC. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. So the Zoom invite needs updating,
Yeah.
as well as
Even the logo has
Zoom
EBC.
names and logos. Okay, so if folks could keep an eye out, like it's not a thing of criticism. It's a thing of being a team player to say, hey, here's another place, because there's about 1 million places. And so please keep your eye out. If you see something that needs updating, there was an advertisement in the paper after the name change had happened that was EBCE instead of AVA. Some of those kinds of things, like we want to make sure that that our staff hear that so that they can address it, because we're in too many places, which is really a compliment to staff. The community energy part, I can't believe it's not on the swag. All right. So the other thing I wanted to touch on was there was a subcommittee meeting that a member of the public mentioned that held a couple items, and that recording of that should be available online. That has the presentation and discussion around the audited financial statements for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. That committee did see fit to confirm using the $10 million for one-time on-bill credits, where the numbers that we were presented for a slightly larger number, so these numbers will be slightly wrong, is around $6 for a residential customer on average, and around $30,000 for the city of Oakland. That wasn't part of the presentation. That was a comment made by CEO Chassett in the meeting where we were discussing it, but that is when we were talking about 14.75 million. So those numbers are wrong. There was a request made to, or at least a comment made about what did that mean for our commercial and industrial customers? Like, were they getting even more than that? That committee said that since this was a financial decision that a previous board had voted and had voted on, that they think that they shouldn't change it. But that item will be up for discussion on this coming up budget. So that will be coming back to everyone. So if you are interested, I encourage you to go back and look at that subcommittee meeting. And there was also a really great discussion on the workforce guidelines and like labor and environmental policy, which is a joint task force of around 40, I think, different organizations and unions who are bringing forth labor and environmental standards. So there was just a really good discussion. Some good direction was given. They are going to be going back and talking, like staff are going to be going back and talking to that committee to see if they can find like solid ground on the majority of the items. And then either if something's real contentious, it'll go back to committee. And if it isn't, it'll get brought before the full board. And I know that those were items that were interesting to the whole body. And actually the 2022-2023 budget surplus is actually on this agenda. So that'll be heard next. But I encourage you to go take a look at those things and hear where the discussion is, because trying to get caught up on that all at the very end is going to be real complicated. And so if you can take the time to listen to those parts, I would encourage it. And that's the end of what I need to report to the group.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Yes, there's a letter there speaking about the coalition, the environmental justice support with comments as well on the new AVA website, AVA Community Energy website. With that, any other feedback or comments that we need to take, Adrian, or any other questions, clarifications?
Yes, I wanted to ask on the workforce guidelines and policy, where was that discussion? Was that at the board meeting? What group were you referencing?
The procurement, Adrian, can you help me with the
Financing.
name of the committee? Procurement, finance, and administration or something?
Financial, Administrative, and Procurement Subcommittee. It's the video is posted on avaenergy.org/meetings.
That's a recent meeting, obviously?
Yes, yes.
And then when you said there was union participation, what unions were invited and how did that happen? I'm just.
Sure. So this item has come in front of the CAC before. There is a document that may be attached to this meeting's Vice Chair Hernandez.
I didn't see it in this meeting. I did pull it down from the website. It was labeled November 7th. EJ letter support, I believe. It was directed to Chair Balders and the honorable directors of the subcommittee.
Got it.
So-
Adrian, do you mind emailing that out to all members of this body?
It was for the meeting on November 8th, about 2 pages. Talking
Yeah.
about the
Yes.
endorsement list of alliance organizations.
Right. And just so you know, the Coalition for Environmental and Labor Standards for CCAs has been convened with the building trades, with some other folks from some CCAs, and they are, but I don't have a full list of all the unions. So I encourage you to take a look because they're listed out there.
Yes.
And I know that they have been reaching out to some of the other unions who are not part of the Building Trades Coalition and are working closely with both environmental and environmental justice organizations. So they're taking a pretty good approach to it, but I encourage you to take a look at who's there. And if you would like to get involved, I'm
Yes,
sure they would love it.
Yeah, I would like to consider getting involved in that, yeah. Since I'm a labor, among other things, a labor representative here also.
Yeah, the Building Trades of Alameda County is mentioned in here too, with Jessica Tavar as well as the local Clean Energy Alliance a couple signees on, as well as some organizations such as Clean Power SF, Peninsula Clean Energy, Central Coast Community Energy, and Clean Power Alliance as model CCAs mentioned in the letter. Anything else, Chair? Any other feedback from the committee? Hearing none, we'll go item C5. It's a fiscal year 2022-2023 budget surplus and reserve allocation. Excuse me. It is an action item this evening to confirm approval of allocation of the budget surplus. Is staff presenting this item this evening?
Yes, Jason Bartlett, Senior Finance Manager, will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Jason, and I appreciate your responsiveness to my question earlier about the audit.
Sure, absolutely. And good to see everyone tonight. It's been a little while. I hope everyone is doing well. So this is a report on the recently closed budget from last year's budget, which closed June 30th, 2023. And this is a discussion on the budget surplus as was previously discussed in June 15th of 2022 when the budget was initially passed. So this is just so that we're clear, don't want any confusion, that this is not related to the discussion that was held with this year's budget, which is an ongoing and determined matter, which will be addressed in, I believe, in the July, at least in January, when we bring the mid-year budget update to the board. So that said, next slide, please. So on June 15th of 2022, the board approved the fiscal year budget for 22-23 by a resolution. This budget proposed a waterfall for the surplus of revenues, where the first 50 million of net position would be retained for working capital needs to continue to not dip into the reserves and to pay related energy and operational costs. The next 75 million would then go to the reserve fund, which we are continuing to build to try to meet the 50% operating target. And then whatever was remaining after that would be split 50-50, with some half going to one-time on-bill credits to customers, and the other half being retained for long-term energy clean storage investments that would otherwise not be considered economically feasible. So this presentation presents the budget performance and discusses these allocations in the amounts. Next slide, please, Adrian. So here is a brief snapshot of the budget comparison in a summary form. We have it's a bit of an eye chart. I apologize. The key things to note is the three columns are the budget as approved, the actual financial outcome, and then the difference between them. And as we go down the chart, we see that the net increase, which is kind of right in the middle, was about 10 million less than forecasted. And then below that, there was about 20.4 million of local development that was allocated, but has not yet been spent. So then that leaves a retainable kind of net increase available for the waterfall at about 146 million. When we pass that through the waterfall, 50 goes to working capital, 75 to reserves, which leaves 21 available for the 50-50 split. So 10 and a half going to the long-term investment on renewables, and 10 and a half going back to the customers and bill payers. Next slide, please, Adrian. Here's a very much more detailed or more kind of narrowed it down version. And this gives this basically repeats the conditions of the proposal with the exact numbers as they kind of came through. So we see here that this just reiterates the 50, the 75, the 10.5, and 10.5. Next slide, please. And so of the 75 that's going to the reserve fund, this outlines the kind of history of how we've developed our reserve fund. The first iteration was had several buckets of reserves and was based on revenues. Upon some guidance that we received from credit rating agencies and also doing a survey of the other CCAs, we made an amendment to that to the reserve policy and made it a single bucket policy with a targeted range. The target that the actual target that we're shooting for is the 50% range, but we did allow 25% on either side to be at discretion of the board to account for things such as increase or changes to local development expenditures, or as well as like energy volatility. And the use of reserve funds requires board approval. We do not have the authority to dip into the reserves without submitting a public notice. And so then on June 15th of 2022, the board pre-established the intention to contribute 75 million of the surplus towards reserves for this last fiscal year. Next slide, please. And so with that 75 million contribution, we get to a balance of about 231 million, which is 31.5% of the current operating expenses for budgeted for this year. And again, our target is to get to 50%. So we are moving in that direction. And as you can see, no contribution was made in 2021 due to insufficient net position. That was a very tight year with a very high PCIA and very high energy costs that we covered. And so net position that was accrued in that year was retained for working capital. But this gets, we also have in this chart next year's contribution. Again, it was discussed that there's no finalization on this yet, but the proposal made in June was 100 million, which, as you see, would get us to a better balance and operating expense coverage for next fiscal year.
My apologies. Your voice
Sure.
is a little bit choppy. Could you speak a little bit closer to the mic, or?
Yeah, I apologize. I will turn off video. I have bandwidth issues usually from this location, but usually stopping the video increases the overall choppy, or decreases the choppiness. Is this better?
Please continue.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. Great. So any questions from the board at this time?
We'll take questions from the committee. Clarifying questions and comments, and maybe we can go to public comment after that. Member Swaminathan.
Yes, I have one question. You have outlined the reserves as a fraction of costs or revenue. What is a working capital as a fraction of annual costs or monthly costs?
Good question. So, so the operating expenses that we project for the fiscal year are basically everything that includes energy as well as overhead, like the administrative part. And so we're attempting to cover 50% of that with held reserves. The operating or the capital, sorry, let me rephrase that. The working capital retention is what we do an estimate based on based upon the burn rate of what our, we basically give it a lead time for there is a business cycle in which it takes time for revenues to return to us through the billing and rate setting process. And it takes about 3 months. But in some instances, if we're in a better fiscal year, it can be lower, and in other instances, it can be longer. The 50 million that we are retaining this year is because we are holding a strong, is lower than we've needed in the past because we are holding a stronger cash position. But as the business cycle resolves itself, basically that'll get us through the lean time until the revenues from operations are able to cover expenses moving forward through the fiscal year. I know that was probably a bit jargony, and I apologize. I will gladly try to explain it again in a cleaner manner if that was not sufficient.
So I guess my question is, do you have a working capital account, and what is that as a fraction of monthly expense?
Yes, very good. We do. Yeah, thank you for helping give direction there. We do have a working operations account, and we generally keep that at about 2 months of operating balance.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Member Liu?
Jason, thanks for the presentation. I have one question. I see that right now we have about 30% of the operating, the reserve fund is about 30% of the operating income. And yes.
My apologies. Can you speak a little bit closer to the mic, please?
Sure. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. My question is about the reserve fund. So what's our target percentage for the reserve fund? I know right now it's about 30% of the operating income, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So our current, as you've noted, our current balance is about 30% of operating expenses. Our target is 50%. That is a board-approved policy that we are working towards.
May I know why we want to have 50%? It seems a pretty large budget.
Yeah, very good. But you're right. It is a large amount. It is the guidance that has been given to us by the credit rating agencies as an industry standard, and also based upon a survey of other CCAs, seems to be aligned with their intentions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other member comments? Jason, if you can bring back that slide that has that perspective, or maybe Adrian with the slide of showing the annual running count. I just want to get a clarification on this 2023 contribution amount that's most likely to be put in there with the board action. I see it being at 30. No, yeah, that's a perfect slide. Perfect slide. So looking at what we have the balance at the end of this year, this is not necessarily negotiable. It is what's going to fall as a waterfall effect at $75 million. It's up to this committee to say we agree or don't, or provide feedback and comments. I think that what we have, that 2023, 2024, $100 million, is that something that's being presented or was presented back in July? Jason, is that what occurred?
Yes, correct. That was presented at the June board meeting. At that time, the budget was passed without a commitment to the waterfall. So the discussion that we will have in January at the mid-year review will focus more on that. I believe that it seemed that the tenor of the board at the time was willing to accept the 100 million contribution and was focused more on the 50-50 split surplus, but I don't want to put any words into the board's intention at this time beyond that.
Of course, and then when was this policy sort of started, this 50%, percent to operate, to cover operations? When was that sort of installed? Or do you recall what
Yes.
year it was?
Yeah, it's on the previous slide, Adrian. Could you go back one slide, please? There we are. January 20th of 2021, so the middle, the resolution R 2021-02-2.
And that
was
provided
the-
direction for, I'm sorry,
Correct. Yes,
for what,
correct.
which year resolution, for the 2022-23 budget,
Oh,
or?
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear. That resolution in January of 21 defined the reserve policy. It did not necessarily define contribution limits. It just set a target of 50%.
What was
of
the year
operating
was
costs.
first, what year was it first applied? Was it?
It was
21,
that yes, the 2021 fiscal year. So this resolution was passed in the middle, at the midterm of that fiscal year, and it was applied at the end of the fiscal year.
And can we go back to the next slide? So that I'm thinking here in 2021, 2022 was sort of the baseline. So that year we had 500.
The 2021. Sorry,
Yeah,
it
so,
was
so the one that, where we had so not the one where we had nothing contributing, but that following year, 2021, 2022, where we contributed $65 million in change?
No, it was in the year in which there was no contribution.
Oh, so then our baseline was $471 million, almost $472 million. So I think
Correct.
my only comments is about the baseline of operations, and we're expanding, basically we're doubling our operational expenses from then to now. And does it still make sense to say we want to cover 50% of 2x? Like right now at 230 after this contribution, we are there at that point, $230 million, $231 million of the 471. So it seems like our denominator might have changed a bit, like 2x. So I think feedback for me, or just clarifying this, is like, okay, do we still want to focus on that 50% threshold now that we've gone almost to $1 billion in operational expenses? So I think maybe that's something for the board to evaluate further, and that 50-50 split will be something to be discussed in addition. But I think that was, I was trying to get clarification on that. Got it. Any other member comments or clarifying questions to Jason?
Yes, I would like to ask a question, please.
Please, member.
Yeah,
Andrew.
so I understand about the 50% for the reserves. And I see it's all the expenditures for that have to be approved by the board. Or I should say allocations taken from that fund would need to be approved by the board. Can you give me some recent examples of how we have utilized that reserve fund, please?
Very good. So holding a large cash reserves serves us in a couple of different ways. One is that it gives us extraordinary credibility when we enter into financial transactions or energy development transactions, for that matter. It allows us to not have to put up cash collateral, which saves us money on the back end, because we're able to retain the cash in an account that can bear interest, where otherwise, if we have to put it up as cash collateral, we no longer have that ability to collect interest on that money. So that is one aspect. Another aspect is that it helps us bolster our credit rating, to which we are coming up for a review, I believe, soon. But that credit rating then helps us with additional value in terms of entering into and getting best prices in longer term energy negotiations. So that's two ways in which this cash balance helps us. The third being that having having this in reserves can provide us with liquidity and stability for when the tides change. Right now, we are in an environment where, and you know, the winds are in our favor financially with the PCIA and with the, and even though energy rates are increasing because we, you know, have rates that are comparable with PG&E, discounted to this by building our balance in this account now will give us much more stability when we transition to a cost of service model, and we'll also be able to provide liquidity for when prices go the other way and PCIA becomes steep. So that's three off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the clarification on the reserves. Member Sousa, I need to step away for a minute. I'll be right back too.
Okay, so I'm curious, has there been any discussion about what would be a good figure for this cash liquidity and the eventual solvency and for bad times and for all the other reasons that you stated?
Yeah.
Has there been any discussion about a number?
Yeah. So the number is, you know, it's not a hard number. It's a relative number, with it being, you know, 50% of operation expenses. And what we are, you know, right now we are in a time, and this is a very good question, so I do appreciate it. Right now we are in a time where, you know, rates have, like, energy prices have been just ratcheting up and up and up over the last like 3 years, and that has been what's been driving, you know, our operational expense up and up and up. At some point, that, you know, what goes up must come down, trends reverse, and you know, and our operating costs are expected to decrease, and in which case we will then have an easier time meeting that 50%, as you know, and we won't have to contribute and can work towards lowering rates for customers, which I believe is the ultimate goal of all of this. And clean energy, of course.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned transferring at some point to cost of service model. I mean, it's not on this meeting's agenda, but is it likely to come up in the next few meetings of what the plans are for a cost of service model?
Yeah, it's probably not likely to come up within this fiscal year. It is, you know, something that has been discussed with the board, and is something that, you know, we are looking into to develop, and it is you know, I am, this is where we're getting a little bit above my pay grade here, but my understanding is that the current internal discussion that we're having is that this is an inevitability. When that comes, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Apologies, I am back.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Jason. Are we in line for public comments, or do we have other member comments?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
This is a CAC action item, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is the action staff is looking for today, this evening?
The action is support in our recommendation of the waterfall allocations.
Hey, I don't know when I'm supposed to make comment. I went to raise my hand for public comment, but I just don't know when I'm supposed to do it.
This would be the time.
Okay.
Once the clerk asks the question.
So, I recognize that this is an item that was voted on by a previous board. Since then, new information has come forth. I'm not opposed to saying this was an action item taken by a previous board, but I really would encourage.
Oh, and Olivia, you muted.
Oh, technology, it's awesome. It really is awesome. It's the user errors on my part. Where did I cut off?
As you were not opposed to considering this as an action item of a previous board.
Right. And because it is, like a board voted on it, but since then we have learned new information, and I don't want to support this. I don't want to block it, but I don't want to give support to it either. And I think the big thing is that the information was presented to us as something that was a lot more equitable than the information that has come forth since is. And there's like some real questions in my head around the methodology that we're using to distribute funds and the way that it's being presented to the public. So some of that transparency issues that are there, and I'd like to see us acknowledge that. I guess that's where I'm at. Like it's problematic for me how this was brought up and presented, and would encourage for future presentations that if there's a dramatic difference in what it's going to look like for different customer classes, that information is included for consideration and to daylight that. And I'm not voting tonight, but I wouldn't vote to support a recommendation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Chair Aldred.
We
Any
have,
other? Please.
I just wanted to let you know that we have 3 hands raised for public comment.
Perfect. Let's take them.
Okay. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you recognize for 3 minutes.
Hello, this is Elizabeth Potter with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. I have a clarifying question on slide 3 of the agenda packet for this item. There's a line that has local development funding retention at 20 million for the fiscal year of 2022 to 2023. And yeah, it wasn't clear to me in the discussion of the surplus, if this was part of the surplus or if this was part of just the regular budget, and I'm hoping to get some clarification on that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have?
Yes, please. You feel free. Yes,
sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Yes. Good question. Thank you for asking. The local development funding retention is so at the time the budget was passed, there was $22.5 million that was budgeted to local development. They have not been able to spend that amount. So in retaining the intention of that allocation, we're retaining it to be spent later for the programs that were discussed in the budget approval session. So that is earmarked is probably the best way to say it. We've earmarked it to be maintained for local development spending.
Thank you, and hopefully we will spend it. We'll take next public comment.
Great, thank you. Jessica Tovar, I recognize for 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Jessica Tovar, and this issue did come up at the Finance Committee, of which I also made some comments, but yeah, I think there's a huge problem here because you know, the same thing was talked about during our last budget session. And one of the transparency issues that I see is we're told this amount of money is going towards bill credits, but it was never outlined how much bill credits are going to, you know, ratepayers within AVA territory. And it came out that municipal accounts would be receiving, let me back up a little bit, that residential customers would get a one-time $5 off their bill. And municipal accounts, meaning city accounts, would be getting something like $30,000 one-time credit. Now, that makes me question, how much money are you giving to commercial accounts? And where is the equity in that whole equation and the transparency, right? Like, what we were saying is, instead of giving people $5 up their bill, how about investing this money into long-term assets? Well, now learning that large amounts of money are being funneled to the very decision makers in this agency, there's not only an equity question, there's an ethics question that I'm raising, okay? So while a decision was made of what to do with these funds by another board at another time, I do see that also as very problematic, because we've been advocating for years for Resilience Hub monies. Since 2020, we have been inundated with power shutoffs, heavy smoke, a pandemic, and crisis after crisis. Community organizations have been trying to build energy resilience since then, and the agency has ignored those requests. Now you're saying 20 million has been slated for local development, but what part of local development? I mean, it's great, it sounds great, but I want to see the line item and the breakdown of where that money is going, because going back to that conversation, at this point, I don't trust this agency to really be uplifting the communities, the environmental justice communities, and the people who are living in debt right now and actually addressing their needs. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing them ignored.
Thank you, Jessica. We'll take the other public comment if we can, and we'll have our member who has raised hand.
Great. Audrey Ichinose, recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. I had two questions, and I'm sorry, the one about the projections for next year, 23, 24. I believe it said $100 million. Who made this projection, and why is it so actually out of step with the previous actually achieved allocations? So that's one question, and that I guess Jason can answer. But the second question, I wanted to follow up on something that member Lutz raised about the cost of service model. I don't know what that is, but and so some sort of description of it would be helpful. But the my question to staff is that you know that this before the CPUC is the question of changing electricity rates to move away from cost of service to something that is more related to income level. I wonder if, you know, I know this is, this question is far into the future. But if staff is aware that the CPUC and the investor-owned utilities want to go in the other direction, I'm sorry if these questions are are confusing, but I'm trying to raise them as best as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. I think you're really talking through cost of service and understanding a shift from that to more income-based. And I might have missed the member's comment earlier. Apologies for that. Member Souza, unless there's any other raised hands from the public. Adrian,
There are no further hands raised at this time.
thank you. Member Souza.
Thank you. I was in agreement to some degree with Olivia Ann and about the differences in both the projections and the fact that the board just went forward with the original vote. And I would like to see some solutions to that problem, because I think you know, this is supposed to, the budgets are supposed to be approved. So if it was that different, I would like to see some solutions or hear some solutions to that problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Souza. Other comments or a response from staff or Jason?
Yeah, I can give a response to which I'm able. I've heard a lot of really good comments and a lot of strong concerns, which you know are I think are important that we address. I'll start with what I heard to be kind of the most important one, which is transparency into the on-bill credit allocation. Now, there's no methodology that, you know, that everyone's going to agree to, but the one that we're doing is we're taking essentially this $10.5 million and dividing it equally across all the kilowatt hours that were consumed through the fiscal year, and creating a flat, you know, dollar per kilowatt hour credit, and just applying that equally to the different to each individual. So the residential rate class gets the you know, since they get an amount based on how much energy that they've used. The customer or the commercial accounts get, you know, the same dollar per kilowatt hour credit based on their usage, and same with municipal accounts. And you know, we're viewing that as an equitable distribution, given that it's an equal dollar per kilowatt usage. But I do understand that other people might see that differently. But that is the, you know, basically the you know, the transparency in which we're applying here. Now, and again, related concern that was brought up that I heard was that, you know, that wasn't made clear in how it would be operationalized at the time that the budget was passed, and that, you know, was true. That was a detail we had not yet gotten to. So I did want to address those. The next level of concern that I heard was money available for resiliency. That is a local development program that is funded through that $20 million that is being retained. So that money, I'm not aware of the actual breakout of how much of that goes to resiliency specifically, but that money is, you know, there for resiliency development programs. Then the cost of service model, just to address that, basically what that is that instead of providing a discount to PG&E rates, we would create our own rates based on what it actually costs for us to serve the community. And so that would and so that's what it's meant by a cost of service model, is that it takes us from being indexed to the IOU and puts it the rates that we would charge based on our own financial accordance.
Thank you, Jason, for clarifying and providing some transparency. And a quick follow-up on the cost of service. Do you still have like the Lifeline models or other
my
programs to help?
my understanding is that you know, again, there aren't really any major details available at this time, but my understanding is that the intention is to fully continue, if not improve upon the CARE, FARA, and Lifeline packages.
And for this committee, when will we see more of the details outlined to help us feel more comfortable, especially for the next upcoming budget or the budget that was just approved? When do you think we could see more information around this transparency efforts by Ava Community Energy?
So in regards to the cost of service model, that is still an undetermined timeline, but I know that it is an ongoing discussion. And then regards to the transparency on the on-bill credits, I believe that has already been presented to the board. I believe in September, might have been October. I'm not exactly sure on when that.
Must have been September. I was at the October meeting and there was a really discussion about cost of service there. Be nice to get that information in front of this committee, possibly at the subsequent meeting in December.
Cost of service. Sorry if I misspoke. Cost of service discussion was not in September. The on-bill credit allocation, I believe, was discussed in September. But I'm not 100% on that. I might be wrong.
Okay. Well, people are probably slacking you or sending you Teams chat messages clarifying.
Yeah,
so we don't have that.
Those.
That's okay. No, I don't know if they're doing that or not. I think we have Joe Edred, some comments we'll take from her.
Just clarification, when the item came forth, the discussion with the board was that we would like to have it come back for discussion. So that's what came up at the September meeting.
Okay, all right.
Because it was that portion of it, the allocation of it was not approved at the last budget. It was just earmarked for, we're going to have these funds and then we will revisit to decide what to do with it. So I'm sure that'll be forthcoming, and I'm sure that staff can do the level of transparency that's being asked for, because they'll know it. So yeah, that's what happened in September.
Thank you, Anna Olivia. Appreciate that.
Right. So understanding the staff is requesting an action item here to support the budget surplus and reserve allocation. I may ask Jason, if the CAC does not act on this, is this something we would table or something that would come back to us, or is there no impact to the board not having the recommendation either way?
My understanding is there will be no impact to the board having our recommended, or with not having a recommendation. You know, it will be discussed there. It is an action item for the board, so there is the ability for the board to say no and have us come back with something later.
And possibly taking some of the comments from this meeting, ideally. All right, so what is the will of this committee?
It's slated for a vote on the agenda, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay, and I think we should vote.
Is that a motion? Members of Vietnam.
Yes, I would like to move to approve the staff's recommendation for the flow chart, the waterfall chart allocation of surplus revenue.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Member Carr. Any other discussion? Just for myself as acting chair, I just would want to say that I'm not going to support this motion at the moment. I'd like to get more clarity, understanding of the transparency elements discussed at the meeting. With that, we can take any other comments or from
Yeah.
the,
Jim Lutz, a comment here.
yes, sir.
This one says it's basically approving the waterfall allocation to the budget. And I guess I speak in favor of it, but the way the on-bill credits are approved or calculated is not defined here. And what Jason was saying is it's the dollars is based on kilowatt hours that were consumed, not on dollars that were spent. So, and I don't, off the top of my head, have the relative cost per kilowatt hour of the different account types. And if a commercial account or a municipal account is obviously going to be buying a lot more electricity than a residential account. And if their dollars per kilowatt hour rate is lower, dividing the dollars by kilowatt instead of dollars by kilowatt purchased instead of dollars by dollars spent actually means that it is transferring, it's favoring customers with cheaper electricity, which it depends on the relative rates of the different accounts and the different sizes. So that, I guess I support what you were saying, Vice Chair Hernandez, about clarity on how it's done. So, but
Yes,
generally I'm speaking in favor of it, but the details of how it's done. And also, those are relatively small amounts for the total budget surplus. So, just a concern.
of course, thank you.
Vote
I think
for
our chair can carry those concerns forward to the next meeting, hopefully. Remotely. No. Anyway, other comments? If not, we'll take a roll call vote.
Okay. Great, thank you. Member Landry,
Abstain.
Member Liu,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Souza,
I'm gonna abstain.
Member Carr,
Yes.
Member Lutz.
yes with the concerns that were raised.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Hernandez.
Needed more information, abstain.
Okay. We counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes votes and 3 abstain. The motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move forward to the next item. And I understand that somebody's going to be able to take over the meeting. Is that Member Lutz? Be able to. Or who was it that was maybe going to be able to take over for the vice chair, acting chair? So I can jump into another
Yes,
meeting.
that was me.
Thank you, Member Lutz. If you don't mind taking over as acting chair for the meeting, I need to step away for another conflict.
Okay. Are you coming back or?
I don't think I will. I want to make a public comment at the city council meeting where I'm at today at the Sister Cities Gallery. My
Oh.
apologies. So I want to be present for that information.
Okay,
Thank you very much, all.
then, next item. Yeah, we do this, you give the presentation, clarifying questions from the members, public comments, and then, is this an action item or are you, and then a vote to? Okay, go ahead.
Adrian, why don't you bring up the memo instead of? My apologies. Everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I believe that's probably impossible to read, and that's okay. I'm just gonna, no, it's okay. I'm just gonna speak to in general. First, good evening, everybody. It's nice to be in person. CAC, thank you so much for the time. This is, I'm gonna do a little bit backwards in time stuff on this. So this is the SunZia Wind Project that we brought to you all for the October CAC and the October board meeting. We presented this as a project that's in New Mexico. It's 150 megawatts of wind that was, if I remember correctly, both approved by the CAC and then certainly approved by the board for execution. During our negotiations with the SunZia project, which again, we explained to the CAC and the board last month, is that this is a project that we see a lot of value in for our customers, both due to the energy shape and due to the economic metrics for it. So when we do our quantitative analysis for the project, it had very strong economics, which means it's favorable for our customers. And during our negotiations, we brought 150 megawatts to the board, but in the lead up to October's board meeting, we were made aware that more generation was available to us. And so now we're bringing this item to the CAC and to the board to request approval to increase the size of AVA's offtake from 150 megawatts to 250 megawatts. And so we'd be purchasing an additional 100 megawatts from the wind project. And so again, the specifics of the project are the same. It is the same large 3,515 megawatt wind project that's in New Mexico. It's directly interconnected. I take that back. It's pseudo tied to the CalISO grid, so the energy comes directly into the state for our customers. And again, it's an advantageous project to us, and we just wish to increase the size and to seek CAC's direction and board approval to increase our offtake from 150 megawatts to 250 megawatts. So again, reminder, it came in October for 150, and now we're asking for an additional 100 megawatts for the project. I'll pause there for any questions.
May I?
Yeah,
Yes.
Member Landry.
I'd like to ask, what type of renewable energy is it? Is it R1, or can you explain that? Because sometimes when the energy comes from outside of California, it's not weighted quite the same way. So I'm just.
Yeah, and you're speaking of the difference between the portfolio content category 1 RECs, which are the creme de la creme, for lack of a better term, and the portfolio content category content 2 RECs, where the bundled power isn't renewable, which we've talked about a lot during the emissions presentation in October. So this is of the flavor of the more renewable. There's no right word to say this. It's the one where the renewable energy is actually coming into state. So it's a PCC1, which means that there's no emissions to it. The wind that's generated on a turbine is the same wind that's coming into state and being consumed. So it's a PCC1 REC, the same RECs that we buy in state and the majority of our portfolio.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to add that, it's wind energy from New Mexico too for the source.
Member Swaminathan, you had a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So this is a fortunate turn of events that they were able to offer the same product for additional volumes. Do you know what prompted a higher volume to be made available?
I didn't completely hear the question. Could you just please repeat it?
Only last month we heard 150 megawatt deal, and now it's increased by 100 megawatts. do you know what prompted a increased volume of offer?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of available volume was discussed in the lead up to the October meeting, but we were still working on some of the pieces of the size and whether it was a fit for our portfolio. And so the available volume was there, and we requested for them to make a formal offer to us for us to look at and evaluate and see if the value was still there. And so we initiated the question to them. It's a large project, again, 3,515 megawatts, and we just see really nice economics and really nice fit for our portfolio. So we asked for more megawatts if available. So I would say we instituted the request. Ava did.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Member Souza?
Yeah, I was actually, yeah, I remember this conversation. There were some concerns about local projects versus out-of-state projects. And this particular project it made financial sense. It's sad that we weren't able to have a more local solution for it. And that it's a P1, which is unusual, I think, because this particular pipeline was designed specifically for California. So it's called the California project. That's why it's P1 instead of one of the other designations that would make the power content look you know, it wouldn't be designated as a renewable. So in the descriptions, I do wish at some point that we could find some more local projects or local sources. I'm just going to put that out there. The fact that it's additional megawatts, you know, it's good. So I just wanted to remind everybody about the power content. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions from the board. Any questions from the public? Oh,
yes.
Elder.
Okay. Go ahead and recognize.
Yeah. Elder, Anne Olivia, do you want to speak?
I would. This is brief. I was just wondering what pseudotide means in this instance and how this project fares under the proposed labor and environmental standards document that came out. If staff had included the environmental and conservation plans, like how would this go under that?
Yeah, I can answer the first question pretty easily. So pseudotide basically means that the resource looks as if it is attached directly to the CalISO, to the balancing authority. So it's basically has firm transmission line where the megawatt hours can freely flow into the state. And so pseudo means it looks just like a resource in the state, even though it's out of it. The alternative to that is a dynamic transfer resource that actually has some gatekeeping on those wires and poles. But this one has a dedicated transmission line to get the megawatt hours into the state. And so for all intents and purposes, under the eyes of the CalISO, it looks like it is in the state from a megawatt hour perspective. And I'm sorry, I don't have a great question for your second one, just because I'm not that aware of a document, and that's on me. But as we showed in the October meeting, there is some of the environmental groups that have shown support for this project, Audubon Society and the Sierra Club. But I'm sorry I don't have any more information on what you're asking.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any discussion among the members? Landry?
I am going to support this item. I do think that, you know, has much renewable energy, wind, solar, that we can get that is good, you know, for the state and for our local area. Again, as another member just said, we would like to encourage local development, as you are very aware of, but I think this is a very good project.
What? Okay. Any public comment?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Okay. Any other discussion among the CAC members? I call for a motion.
I'll make the motion to, let's see, to increase the size of the Sun Via project agreement as proposed by staff. Or I support the staff recommendation.
Any?
I second.
Okay. Thank you. Call for the vote.
Thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Liu,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Souza,
Yes.
Member Carr,
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes.
Next on the agenda, you have the next item too. Okay, why don't you? Item 7. Oh, Member Swaminathan, I can see your hand.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want to mention that I need to leave at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Just want to mention in case we are in the middle of an agenda item, I might have to drop off.
Right, and we will lose our quorum once the.
Okay, we'll keep this one short. Okay. Presentation and clarifying questions, member comments, discussion, and vote. Same,
Yeah, and
same routine.
so I'm presenting on a second project. This one's a little bit more interesting in a sense that it's not from our 2023 RFO. This is actually, and just to pull right out there, it is out of state. I'm sorry, that's the reality of it, but this one was already board approved and was part of our 2022 RFO. This one we brought to the board in February of 23, earlier this year, and the board approved the project. And this one came out of our negotiations that were during the RFO process that started in 2022. So not the RFO that the SunZia project came from, but the one the year before. So again, this project was approved by the board already, but during the year, we found that there were some challenges in their development. And so we presented to the board this project here that was a 20-year, 42.5 megawatt solar project with a battery project in Maricopa County, Arizona. It had a COD in April of 2025, but during the negotiations, we found that they had some failures in their ability to procure some of the very important material for the substation. And so they wanted to keep the deal alive. They wanted to keep a deal with AVA, but they needed to adjust the commercial operation date to April of 2026. And so what we're doing is bringing this project back to the board with the new commercial operation date, that's 2026, and seeking guidance from the CAC on the project. And so again, it's a 42.5 megawatt solar project that's paired with a 42.5 megawatt lithium ion battery project. It's located in Maricopa County, Arizona, and the seller's Long Road Energy. And again, it has a commercial operation date in 26, which is a year delayed from what we brought to the board earlier this year.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Any clarifying questions? Member Swaminathan?
Yeah, just one question. The price remains the same. It's just only the date changing.
I don't have that answer. I'm not sure what the price was on the one with the 25 handle. So I'm not positive on that, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay. And member Souza?
Yes. Since we're talking about distances, can somebody talk at some point? I'm not today, but about line loss. These are transmission lines that go large distances, and line loss is a big problem with electricity. And so, if we're putting a battery system far, far away, how much are we really getting from this? How much are we benefiting from this? And so I just wanted to throw that out there and maybe someday get an answer for how much we're losing as far as line loss. Thank you.
Yeah, I can try to speak to that a little bit. Typically, I'd say that often what we pay is we pay at the delivery point, and so we settle at the point of delivering the CalISO, and so that's usually considered the facility meter. And so the line loss at times can be absorbed, that those losses fall to the seller and aren't inflicted on us as the buyer. So we're not buying 1 megawatt at the facility and then getting 0.75 at the delivery point. We're buying 1 megawatt at the facility meter at the delivery point. And so those line losses, station use, that's all absorbed by the seller typically.
Okay. This is I've got a question and then go to public comment. And this dawned on me when I was reading this earlier today, both this and the SunZia project, the remote projects. We, because they're remote, they drive up the transmission cost because somebody's got to pay for those wires. And that gets embedded in PG&E's T&D cost. The cost to expand the transmission to accommodate the cost to PG&E to expand the transmission to accommodate the remote generation. So while we're getting clean power, getting cheap power, we're inadvertently raising the rates for T&D. And, maybe not this project, but in bulk overall it is. And that's something we don't control. We pay for the cost of the power, but we don't pay for the cost of T&D as AVA Community Energy. But as customers, we do pay for it. So I don't know if there's any way of calculating that out and figuring out what the impacts are. So it's just another thing to be aware of, the extra burden of remote power in addition to not having local benefits. So just wanted to say that. I don't see any other questions from the members, questions from the public, or comments from the public.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Okay. Any discussion among the board of CAC members? Landry?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve the staff recommendation to execute a contract with Sun Pond LLC. Should I say as amended? How should I say that?
I think you said it perfectly. That's how the recommendation reads.
Okay, thank you.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And call for a vote.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Liu.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Lockman,
Yes.
Member Souza,
Yes, with a strong recommendation that we continue to search very hard for local local solutions.
great,
Thank you.
Member Carr,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you. And now we're down to the last item, CAC member and staff announcements, and including request to place items on future CAC agenda. Are there any staff announcements? Anybody knows of? Any request to place items on the agenda?
Yes,
Member Landry?
there was a comment by Tom Kelly, and I am curious what happened. I thought we purchased a building on 8th Street, and did we purchase it? I think we purchased it, and I'm curious what happened with the building, what the status of the building is now. I mean, are we selling it, or? Yeah, I'd like to have an update on that building.
Okay.
On the status of the building.
So the process here is these items get put in the hopper, and Chair Eldred and Vice Chair Hernandez and you work together to see how they fit into.
Yes, Chair Marquez and Vice Chair Balch will look at a list and provide staff recommendations for staff
Okay.
according to a schedule.
And you're collecting them. I think this has probably already been raised at least once, but the local development business plan review and 5-year update. I'd like to see that get on an agenda if possible. And this is one that actually might be another item of more speculative that might be of interest to JP as well, is there's all the discussion on risk management, on costs and contracts, on, is the third party going to be viable? Is the economics going to be viable in the future? And I would like to see a workshop, I guess, on storage technology forecasting as a primary example, but I'm sure there may be other technology risk management issues. And what are the policy and price implications of technologies that may be getting close to taking off, or maybe could take off with a bit more support, and would Ava Community Energy be in a position to help support those technology changes instead of just responding to them? And part of the concern is, like, the contract we just supported is a 20-year contract. And if battery technology starts changing in price the way PV changed in price the last 2 decades, that might change what we want to do as
That's a good point.
community energy agency. So that's something I'd like to be discussed at some point. And that's it for me. Anybody, any other items? then I guess we get to adjourn.
Adjourn at 7:52.
Okay. And next meeting, Monday, December 18th at 6 p.m. Will it be here again?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got the easy part.
Great.
Bye, everybody.